Hi, everybody. We're gonna wait just a minute or two while we wait for even more people to join us for this webinar. But as we wait the next minute or two, I wanted to play a song arranged by Tom Trenny. This is coming out in our new release. And this is God is Here Today. A lovely arrangement for unison two-part. And I'm going to put the music up on the screen for the congregational option that is in the score, and I invite you, anybody who wants to sing along. Let's see if I can move my, there we go. Feel free to sing along if you know the melody. Tom has written a little partner song. That's the middle part. God is love, and when we love each other, God lives in us, abides with us when we love our neighbor. And notice the dedication. This was written for Mr. Rogers' Presbyterian Church. So here we go.
As certain as the morning sun that rises.
wonderful. Isn't that lovely? So grateful that Tom arranged that and invited us to publish it. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to get my chat open. Oh, good. Welcome to today's Q&A, everybody. My name is Katie Houts, and I'm the Sacred Choral Editor for Choristers Guild. Over the past 2 weeks, as we've watched this extraordinary health crisis affect really every aspect of our lives, church musicians and church staffs have needed to adapt in creative ways. What do we do now that we shouldn't continue meeting together in the same room, right? We flock to Zoom, to YouTube, to Vimeo, to Facebook Live, many different platforms. A familiar sight now on Facebook, at least, is the Brady Bunch style grid of faces documenting a meeting, a rehearsal, any type of gathering right now. Today, though, let's take a step back from platform options. Rather than ask questions about, do we use Zoom? Do we use Facebook Live? Do we live stream? Do we pre-record? Today, let's talk about our pastoral role as church musicians. Figuring out the logistics of connecting to our people is important, certainly. And today we'll consider why it's important for us to say something. What do we say to our people in a time like this? So before I introduce our panel, I want to invite you all to participate in our chat board. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a little chat icon, and if you click that, a chat window should open. And anytime throughout our webinar, feel free to ask a question to our panelists. I'll be moderating throughout. You can see everyone is sharing their greetings right now. And also share your own bit of wisdom or advice, because we are in this together, and no idea is too insignificant or crazy or creative at this time, right? This is where we really get to show our creativity and our ingenuity, right? Our panelists today represent a diverse set of church musicians. They work with preschoolers, elementary students, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students, adults. They work with singers and ringers and instrumentalists. And most importantly, they connect and communicate with all of these ages and their families in remarkable ways. So please help me welcome Karol Kimmell, Emily Floyd, Mark Burrows, and Mark Miller. And here they all are. Welcome, everybody. Awesome. I see you all. And hello to everybody watching at home. This has been a remarkable response to our webinar. As you can see, we have over 145 people watching live and many more signed up to receive this link. This is a topic that we're all wondering about. And this is not all of our strong suits. Like maybe we went into church music because we love music and we're really good at it. But when it comes to the pastoral side of things, we're kind of left thinking, what in the world do we do? So throughout this next hour, we're going to explore some big important questions about this topic. So here we go. Let's start with this one. And Mark Burrows, why don't you start us with an answer? Okay, here's the question. What and how much do we say to children? This is a scary time for everybody, parents included. So how do we talk to our kids about what is happening?
Okay, so the first thing, and I want everyone to feel empowered to say this. I've been saying it a lot the last 3 weeks. I don't know. You get to say I don't know sometimes, and kids needs to be okay. As adults, we want to fix things for kids. We love them and we don't want them to be hurt physically or emotionally. And so sometimes we rush in to try and have the answer that soothes them. And sometimes the best thing we can say at that moment is, I don't know. but I know that I love you. I know that God loves you, and I know that you're not alone. Sometimes that's one of the best first things we can say, or I don't know, but let me see what I can find out, or I don't know, but let's find out together. Let's explore. And the truth is, a lot of people don't know. I mean, I was sure I knew how to wash my hands until 2 weeks ago. I knew how to do that. I knew how to do all kinds of things. In fact, we knew all kinds of things about this virus 2 weeks ago that have completely changed. So that is something. I think that knowledge is power. So trying to find the right amount of knowledge to share with children is good. Like maybe looking at a picture of what a coronavirus looks like. Why is it called a coronavirus? What does that mean? What does a novel virus mean, so that they can understand some of these words that they're hearing? You don't have to go into great detail, but just through all of it, assuring them that they're loved and not alone. I mean, it sounds really simple, but sometimes those things are so simple that we forget to do them on a regular basis. And it's those simple assurances that they need over and over right now. And in terms of trying to discern how to find the right information or where to turn for the best information, you had referenced Mr. Rogers a few minutes ago. And, right after 9/11, he came out of retirement to talk to his friends. And he reminded the kids that what his mom would tell him during these times of stress is to look for the helpers. There are always people helping. And so those are easy to see in something like a one-time event. And it's a little bit harder to see when we're home, but there are helpers help. And to bring up all those helpers, everyone from the medical workers to scientists to ministers to people who work in the grocery store who are putting food on our shelves. What a heroic thing that is. And then the other add-on to that would be to listen to the helpers. And that starts with listening to the grown-ups who are in the house with you, whose job it is to take care of you. And then also in terms of finding that trusted source of information, who are the ones who are really trying to help us, who are putting our lives and our safety first. And not something else, not some other thing that they would like to see happen. I think that really helps me discern who the true helpers are. But look for the helpers, listen to the helpers, including the grown-ups you live with, and and kids can reassure their grown-ups. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, you don't have to know. It's okay. I know that you love me, and I know how much you love me, and that's enough for right now.
If you work with children of any age and you haven't seen what Mark is doing every day, go on Facebook or YouTube and Google Mr. Mark and Gracie,
And
maybe?
Gracie,
Gracie?
together time.
Together Time. He's making about 10-minute videos for children, music, movement, breathing, a Bible story. The first one I loved because he focused on the word together. How we can be together even though we're not in the same room. So those are great resources, and I know Mark has encouraged everyone to just share them. So point your choir to that YouTube link if you work with children. They're just so good, and Mark is so good about talking about these difficult topics. Karol, how about you? What are you doing with your choirs? What are you telling them?
Oh, you made me remember. Excuse me, I'm not sick. My last choir rehearsal was March 11th, which has been 2 Wednesdays ago. And I have 4 and 5-year-olds, so pre-K, K together. And I draw a circle on the carpet. That's when they come in. And a little girl ran in before choir. She thought she was late, but she wasn't. And I was just going to say, hi, Anna, da-da. And whew, she just went right into, Mrs. Kimmell, there's this thing called coronavirus. And she just went through her litany of everything she knew. And I was aghast that a 5-year-old was telling me all this. She just needed to tell me. She just needed me to listen. It was one of those times maybe when your kids ask you a difficult question and you feel like you have to give every answer. And maybe I'm thinking about the big sex talk maybe. You just find out what they're really asking. Don't give them too much information. and listen more. And so I thought I had not planned to bring anything up to the children. And I didn't in the group, but I did to the little one who just, I said, yes, I hear what you're saying. Well, you know a lot about it. But I think we need to be listening to our kids if they do have questions, whether they're in your house or not. Um, that was, sometimes I just want to tell so much, and I need to be reminded to just listen to their questions.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we're connecting with our kids, we might need to provide a time where we're actually offering, what are you thinking? Do you want to draw me a picture about it if they're younger, that kind of thing.
Mm. Emily, we've worked for all year, and some of us for many years, on building a community, a family in our adult choirs, in our youth choirs. So how about with adults and older people? What are you saying to your people right now?
The first thing I think is important is for them to see our face and to hear our voice, to know that we care about them. So the first thing that I'm using my voice for is to say, you're important, and that we are reaching out to you. I think there should be a feeling of the church and us individually trying to reach out to them to see how they're doing and for them to know that they're significant and they matter. The second thing I'm encouraging everyone to do is to take care of one another. For teens, the social aspect is so huge, and so reminding them to stay connected to one another, because they really want to be connected to each other more than they want to be connected with me. I know that as a parent, that the friends aspect is the number one concern. And then also for adults, for us to brainstorm as a community, who are those who live by themselves that we need to be reaching out to take care of, and making sure that they're getting some contact via the phone or through email or that kind of thing, or through Zoom. The next thing I think is really important for both teens and adults is for them to know that the music that they have made for our community is very important, that it has impact, and that music is particularly relevant within a context. And so it was important before, but it's even more important now. And so reminiscing about some things, some music we've made together, that familiarity, and also from my standpoint, offering familiar hymns, heart songs that speak to the history of their faith is really important. And just to mourn the fact that we can't make music together, that is sad. Just to say, go ahead and own that we can't be physically together, and the sense of ensemble is on pause. Just to sort of name it, and say that it's okay that we own that, and that God is with us. Just as we're disappointed, God's disappointed that we can't lift our praise and we can't be physically together. But the good news is God is with us. And we have each other. We're together, even though we're apart. And then just to sort of nudge toward the future and say that the future is uncertain, the conversation we're having today is a conversation for today. Tomorrow things might change, and that's really frustrating. It's hard to plan things like Easter. It's hard that your first Sunday back might have been the culminating children's musical or choir tour or special music Sunday or whatever, that maybe plans will be shifted, but when we do get back together, what a joy that will be, and how important it will be to our community that we're back together making music.
Mark Miller, I'm going to come to you in a second with that same question, but I just want to share something. As we've been working on our new choral releases, Mark has a new piece coming out, and I was reading it after we kind of got the notice that we can't meet together. Mark's new piece is an arrangement of Are We Yet Alive? Is it Charles Wesley text? Yes. And the words to that, gosh, Mark, help me with some of the words. I'm mixing up the verses.
Are we yet alive and see each other's face? Glory and thanks to Jesus give for God's almighty grace. What troubles have we seen?
What mighty conflicts past? Fightings
Through it all, our
within.
God.
Yeah, it's all about what have we come through together, and now we see each other's face. And so that's going to be a glorious piece to sing together when we do reach that point where we can, it's safe again for us to be together. Oh man, so Mark, okay, how are you talking to your people right now? Your adults, your college students?
Sure. I uh, I want to say yes to everything that Emily just said, and Mark. For me, actually, I've been talking via email to my choir members. My adult choir email seems to work best. So, um, just to be very honest with them, I wrote last week. I think is the first time that I could remember in 40 years. I'm 53, so when I was 13, I started playing the organ in church pretty much every Sunday. So this is about 40 years that I've gone more than a week without singing in a choir, without playing the organ for a service, without leading. I mean, it's bizarre for so many of us. It's deeply, deeply disruptive, and and yet at the same time, I just had a choir member send an email to the whole group saying, I've never learned so much about my fellow choir members because we've written these long emails about our lives to each other. And she said that's been a real amazing point of connection. She's a woman in her 80s living alone and really felt that this was a special thing. So in a way, we're incredibly blessed to have this technology to stay connected, and to kind of think of it. I think, like Emily said, I mean, when the time comes that we can come back together again, that will be the celebration of something humanity has not experienced in I don't know when. So I'm sure Mark B, you and I and many others will be writing songs about that to come together again. But it's also been amazing to me leading a lot of music online right now and playing through songs at home just by myself. Things that I would just sing without thinking of in the past now bring tears to my eyes and make me all kinds of emotional because the words and the music have taken on such different significance in this particular time. So yeah, it's quite a time, and just like everyone else is saying, to stay connected is really that's the key now more than ever. So
Okay, so
yeah.
related to that, Karol, let's go to you. As a choir director, what does your presence right now in this moment mean to your choir kids and their families? Oh, Karol, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. One of the things I'm doing daily, I still am struggling with how to connect with my youth. We have remind.com, and we were supposed to sing with the adult choir 5 really big anthems this past Sunday. We've been working on them for months, and that's just gone. So I'm sending them recordings of others singing the anthems that we were going to do. So I'm still struggling how to help us connect. But with my pre-K through 6th graders, who I see every Wednesday, I am sending a daily audio recording. I keep it short, between 2 minutes and 3.5 minutes. And I'm doing this for several reasons. One is to keep my presence and our idea of choir together. But we did a live, not a live stream, but we recorded a children's church service, typical children's church service that my colleague and I do each week. We recorded it 2 Mondays ago. And when I watched it on the Facebook link, I was like, oh, there's my choir room. That's where I stand. That's where I see everybody. And it gave me such a great feeling of remembering what it's like to be together and to be in that special place. So I thought if I could recreate that simply with audio, not have to worry about fixing up or getting dressed too much for the kids. And so I just do this simple audio. And being asked to do this made me think, what am I doing and how am I doing it? And I've really started to start each one the same. Hello, singers. I'm talking into my phone. Hello, singers. It's time to reinforce that they're singers, you know. Hello, singers. This is Mrs. Kimmell. Today I have a song for you, and whatever it is. I started on St. Patrick's Day with a prayer of St. Patrick. You know, it's a favorite of mine. And I told a little bit about it. But I've just found I've heard from several parents. I haven't heard from everybody, but I've heard from several parents. And one last night said, "Thank you for keeping us grounded." And she sent me a video of her two kids listening and singing along on the song. And I've had one say, "We're using it as our music class." She has 3 kids at home. It's the same little girl that had to tell me all about Corona. And another just said, "It's our favorite part of the day." So I don't see a lot of my parents on Wednesdays because I do one choir after another. Some grandparents or nannies bring their kids. And what I'm seeing is, what I'm sending to them is reminding them of what we do at church together, but it's also giving them a chance to do it at home together. So I'm trying to give them some normalcy, some positivity. Yes, some positivity. I sent one the other day that talked about being kind, and I said, you know, you may be having a little trouble being kind to everybody in your house, or being challenged. So kind of laughing about it, but keeping everything upbeat. On the other hand, my colleague is Christian Ed colleague is doing a story time every Wednesday, and I just watched hers, and she gets into some of the heavier thoughts, like how do you deal with fear? And I think between us, we're giving a good balance. And she's a registered child therapist. She's awesome. I learn from her every time we're together. But for me, I want them to remember those good feelings that we have when we're together. The music is good, but it's also just that remembering and consistency.
And I hope you're looking at the chat board because there's lots of great ideas and really good questions. And there have been some questions about tech and things. Our panelists will probably share ways that they've connected. I'm not sure if we'll have time to get into the nuts and bolts of really working with something like Zoom, but next week we'll plan to be back with something like that so we can explore together what are some good tips in working with Zoom, being a musician, because there are some that will make it more successful for your group.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
We've had lots of Zoom meetings at our church too, because we're having Zoom Sunday school classes with the kids, mainly so they can just see each other and have one short lesson. But when we had our first planning meeting, all the parents were like, "Oh my gosh, it's not just being home, it's all the schoolwork that our kids are being given. We're spending 5 and 6 hours, some of the families, 5 and 6 hours a day, we feel overwhelmed." So the first thing I sent out, I sent like, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. If this is too much for you, don't feel like it's not choir homework. But I want you to understand that I'm here for you. So I'm glad that we had that meeting so that I could say, you don't have to do this. This isn't Mrs. Kimmell's instructions. This is Ms. Kimmell's offering.
That is great. Emily, how about you? You have teenagers at home with you. How can we reach out as music directors in ways that are sensitive and not overwhelming families who are overwhelmed right now with tech?
Sure. The best thing to do as a church staff, if you can, is have some sort of coordination of the scheduling of, we call them touches, how we're touching aspects of the congregation. And we have a Google Doc that we all contribute to so that we can sort of see through the week how are those touches scheduled to go out. And so I think if you're doing individual stuff, that doesn't matter. If you're not getting a response, I know our associate director of music is doing lots of reaching out to teens. And if you don't get a response, that doesn't mean that they haven't read it or smiled or felt that reaching out was special. So if you don't get a response, maybe people are just overwhelmed. So don't take that personally. Just sort of rest in the knowing that you've done your pastoral effort. One way to approach it is that during your usual rehearsal time is a time set aside for choir time, and so you might consider just sort of staying on a schedule of your choir rehearsal time. We have a goal at our church of doing something every day, and so that's sort of a structure that I'm living into, that we have a prayer time or a music time or a vesper service every week. So just sort of thinking as a team how to structure that, because you don't want to overwhelm. I think we're finding that things that are sent out on Monday and Tuesday aren't as well responded to or as well viewed as well, because they've just come off of watching worship on Sunday or youth choir rehearsal on Sunday or youth group on Sunday night. So just thinking strategically, giving a rest in a few days in between.
Awesome. I had a thought in my brain, and I was just looking at the chat, and now it's gone. Poof. Oh, someone had a really great question on the chat board. How do we avoid overwhelming ourselves? Because we're we've had to switch our brains. If we're using a Zoom rehearsal or whatever kind of rehearsal, it's not going to look, sound the same as when we have our people in the room. There's just no good way to do a live rehearsal where you can hear them, they can hear you. It's just, we don't have the tech for that. So we have to change our expectations when we're doing that. So how do we avoid becoming overwhelmed ourselves? Any of you on the panel have some wisdom for that?
Emily, I think we're viewing your screen right now, or maybe that's just me.
Yes, I am.
Here it is. Emily, do you want to do?
And you're on mute right now.
Let me share that one more time. For whatever it's worth, I am considering myself to have a new job description, which if we have time during this webinar or at a different time, I can share just a brief PowerPoint that I have. But I'm considering myself older adult ministries, part youth minister, part tech director for worship, just all kinds of shifts in our job description. And so just put your oxygen mask on first. At the beginning of this, I felt like there was lots of push for this or that. If I hear virtual choir one more time, like many of you, I just have to know that that's their anxiety speaking, and it's also an affirmation of what we do, that they love choir. But I have to put my oxygen mask on first. I have to take care of myself and my family. And then once I have my oxygen mask taken care of, strategize, brainstorm, consult team, consult respected resources like the panel and our participants here today, then I can offer that oxygen to other people.
This is great advice. And I would say, don't feel like you have to provide all of the content that you normally would to your people on a weekly basis. I mean, when I was getting together with my very, very young choir, we're doing Zoom rehearsals. They're not really rehearsals. It's just music time where they watch Miss Katie and they maybe sing along at home. But I thought, okay, what brings them joy, the most joy in rehearsal? It was 3 things for me: freeze dance, what's in the box, thanks to Mr. Mark. They always want to know what's in the box. And the third one, I can't remember. Oh, puppets, our puppet friends. So I knew that they're not gonna watch me on a video for 45 minutes. How about if I come on for 20 minutes, even 10 minutes, to let them get excited about what's in the box, to see my face, to sing a familiar song. I'm not introducing any new songs. We are just singing our favorites because my goal is just to bring some joy into their home during this time that we're together but not together.
Yeah, I would also, these are great, y'all. It's good for me to hear you all and hear what you're saying. Um, I teach in college and everything's gone online, and we found out quickly that we would quickly overwhelm our students with Zoom classes for hours a day. And we realized that we have to meet asynchronously, which means not all together all the time on Zoom. We can do other things besides having that, which is a real weird thing for us musicians. We meet in person, so obviously we have to meet, even if it's on Zoom. But I would urge you to think maybe you don't, and have things ready to go, like some of you have mentioned, with recordings or what Mark does. These pre-recorded messages, emails. Ask people to do things that are offline, that shows you're still connected, but we don't always have to have these, because I was used to 7 rehearsals a week, with meetups that we have to meet everyone. So that has to get lessened too. Lessened as in Lessend. Someone mentioned about Zoom. How can we do a Zoom choir rehearsal? Everyone unmutes their mics and it sounds like a cacophony. Even in our planning today for this webinar, I'm going to try to sing something at the end, but I mentioned to Katie how Zoom is not a friendly place to make music live. Even with good pre-recorded quality music, when Katie was playing that at the beginning, it was decent, but it's not the same over Zoom. Zoom's a great way to connect face to face and have some conversation, but you can't have a choir rehearsal with people singing on Zoom. That doesn't work yet. Maybe the technology will catch up to us at some point, but for me personally, it's been hard to not be as close to as good as I can get over the last couple weeks. Meaning, if I'm going to record something, I really want it to be good to put out there, but sometimes, it's just not working out that way, and I have to go easy on myself and I've always told people, don't be perfect. Let's just get together and make it happen. But now I have to take my own advice to say, let it go, Mark. It's not going to be, the 100% that you thought you were doing in the past. Probably wasn't anyway.
Some of the best things I've seen are the bloopers of people who are like trying to record something for their choir, or our school teachers. I'm on staff at a school, and the best, like the most life-giving moments have been these blooper reels of people like trying to light a candle and the match just does not work, like every time, or whatever they're trying to do. But yeah, release yourself from that pressure, as Emily just chatted in a while ago. Release yourself from the pressure and just take deep breaths. That's what Mr. Mark helps us do in all of those little videos. He asks us to breathe in and breathe out and just say a word, So moving into a different sort of pressure-filled topic, let's talk about Holy Week and Easter. Right? That's coming up. Obviously, it's going to look different. And it's going to look different for every single church. You have to make your own decisions on what you're going to be doing. But panel, how are you helping your people walk toward this holy season in a meaningful way? And I guess this question is open to anybody, whoever has thought about how we might do that.
I'd like just to start by echoing Mark Burrows at the very beginning. I don't know. I really am not sure about how I'm gonna. The things I'm dealing with now are the cancellations that, the loss. Really, I mean, we were planning a big Palm Sunday concert. doing Rudder Requiem, Howell's Requiem, Howell's Requiem. Let me tell you, I think some choir members, including me, were like, whew, okay, we dodged that bullet for a little while. But so I think most of us have put Easter on pause to say we're going to have Easter when we come back, whenever that might be. I know we'll be doing something on Easter, and I guess I'll just share a quick thing. On Sunday mornings now, we're going to try something new this week, which is Facebook Live from my house where a keyboard is, because the music can work better on Facebook Live. The transmission we'll use that, and the congregation will be connected that way. And then in order to bring others into Facebook Live, I'm going to use an iPad to bring people on and call them up on FaceTime and put them in front of the camera with a swivel or something, so that we can have different. We'll see how it goes, because we'll have a rehearsal on it. Of course, it's going to be a little shaky, but just trying to figure out how to bring other folks into the service. Facebook Live and Facebook be.
So, kind of in the taking the pressure off mindset, it's probably helpful to remember that, at least in the case of the original Maundy Thursday, that was a fairly intimate gathering. It was not this big thing that we did in a worship space. It was Jesus and some close friends, more than 10, but it was a small gathering. And even that original Easter was we put all this brass and lilies on it, but it was a few women walking to a tune and what they saw. And so I think we can take some practice. Now that people come with expectations, and I echo what Mark Miller was saying about, I don't know, but a simple, intimate expression and experience, reading the story, can be a beautiful and powerful thing. Even Maundy Thursday, sharing a meal, washing our hands, and how that has taken on an added significance that maybe it didn't this time last year. And how we love each other. Jesus, that's what Maundy Thursday comes from, the mandatum, and the idea of washing our hands as a sign of love for the more disadvantaged, the older folks. That this is a way for children to show love for each other.
I have two things. Am I on? Yes. Emily just mentioned it in the chat, is to encourage folks to have a home worship space. A lot of families do that at Advent, because we make the Advent wreath, and it's a short little thing, and they feel confident to lead that at home without a big worship booklet or anything. But our education group has encouraged people to make their own worship space, and we've gotten some of the cutest photographs from parents where the kids have taken a table and put candles and put cloths on it, and that follows in what Mark's talking about. It can be intimate like that. The other thing I was thinking about is my first through sixth graders always sing on Palm Sunday. We have two services at the same time, and we have the one in the fellowship hall, and we have a donkey that's there, either to pet outside or to have in the procession. And some of the music I repeat every year. I tend to mix up my Hosanna anthems, which we have to do early because we go straight to the Passion, and no more Hosannas after that. We always sing Helen Kemp's Lenten Love Song. And I swear this year I found something even that I hadn't thought of when I was teaching it. Every year I find something so wonderful in that anthem. And the kids they can't remember the Garden of Gethsemane name. So I realize I need to teach it every year for no other reason to help them remember the story. And I'm telling you this because we also always sing the first verse of Were You There When They Crucified My Lord? The children sing the first verse a cappella alone. And I was on a trip with my sixth graders last year, sixth graders. We were riding along in a Jeep somewhere, and they said, let's sing some choir songs. And the first song one of the boys said was, let's sing Were You There When They Crucified My Lord? And it was a car full of boys, and that's what they wanted to sing. I was so touched. And I was like, we don't, sometimes we can forget what is really powerful to children. And then I've worried about, oh, am I repeating this too much? But they haven't had this as many years as we have. They're still creating those memories and building their faith. But anyway, it just reminded me, we're thinking about what's going to happen on Holy Week. I need to make sure that my kids that sing with me have that opportunity to remember all that, because they've shown me that it's deep in them anyway.
That is a great idea, Carol. It made me
And
think
I brought
of
my palm branches.
the those things that are ritual for our choir. You know, we do them every year, or we do them in rehearsal. Maybe there's a chance to invite them to do that at a specific time together, so that they know, oh, I might be just hearing myself right at this moment, but I know that Miss Katie is doing it right at this exact minute too. And I know that all my choir friends are doing that too. That can be a powerful way to feel community if you're doing it just at the exact same time. Maybe it's on Easter morning. Everybody get together and Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Doing it at the same time.
Find a bell to ring. Find a bell to ring and say I'm having trouble finding songs I want to share with the children that don't have alleluias. I'm ready to sing some alleluias through all this. And I'm holding back because Episcopalians really say, oh, you can't do alleluia. And so I'm ready for Easter for no other reason than it's time to say alleluias. We need to hear it.
I'm not sure who wrote this originally, but Mark, this is exactly what you were saying. But I thought it was so powerful. I'm sharing this with my adult choirs. I just found on Facebook, resurrection will happen even if we're at home. Easter doesn't depend on trumpets, lilies, new dresses. The first Easter took place with no fanfare or packed churches. It looks like this year will be more like that. It will still be Easter because resurrection is not fragile. It does not depend on us. It all depends on God, who will not let us down. Resurrection is not fragile. I love that word. It happens. Yes. Emily, were you about to say something? I feel like you were, and I started talking.
Yeah, this may feel a little bit like a backtrack, but to sort of piggyback on what you said, that resurrection happens without any effort from us, it is important for us to model what we've been asked to do as a society, what we've been asked to do by the CDC, by our mayor, by our governor, and that is to resist the temptation to want to sneak in and gather or pump it up and sort of cheat what the health precautions are to be. So I just wanted to sort of say that. And one idea that we've had is Palm Sunday for us is usually all about children and them sharing their music and them leading. And so our children's choir director, during the Palm Sunday service, which will probably be recorded, is for her to sing that song, and in the worship service invite the children at home while they're worshiping to sing along with her voice. Same thing for the chapel choir. We have a certain song that we sing every Easter. We've already rehearsed it, and so we may have an opportunity for them to sing along at home, and that's just another way to reinforce that different ages we're going to be a part of this leadership, but we have to model it in a way that abides by our health precautions that we need to take. Another thing that I think might be valuable to share with your people, you may not have the same story, but for us in our session meeting, which is our governing body, we were deciding how long to be away from worship, and the issue of Easter was up, and someone said, I don't care when it is, but when we're back together, can we have a lot of music? And so, you know, we may celebrate Easter at a different time in addition to Easter morning. We may put our flower cross up on the Sunday we return and let people bring flowers and remember the resurrection, because there is such joy in being together to celebrate that. But that there will be beautiful music when we're together, even if it's past Easter.
I know tons of churches are planning, like Mark said, a huge Easter celebration, a celebration of life. Really, it's about life and resurrection when we're all back together. All right, so I'm just watching our time line, and I also want to get to a topic that is really important to all ages, really, and that's how do we wrap up our choir season when we're apart. And I'm thinking particularly about how do we find a sense of closure, maybe, and guide our people to let go of some hard things. Maybe our youth were planning to go on a tour, which is now not happening. And that's so much more than making music, right? We all know that music is kind of down the rung. They're powerful, but it's more about being with the people that you've been with for so long, and it's a rite of passage, and it's so panel Emily, how I know your choir tour has been postponed.
Yes. I
Talk to
want to
us.
take folks through how we got to that decision if you haven't gotten there yet, because I think it's really important the steps you take and the transparency with your people. Of course, we're in a different place as a country and as church communities today than we were 2-3 weeks ago, which is when I had to make a decision because of the financial implications for traveling abroad. But I first started with stakeholders, people who were great parent support, and also a couple of naysayers that I knew would be squeaky wheels, but I wanted them a part of the think tank, doctors and lawyers. And so we brainstormed, and at that time we decided to try and wait it out, that we would risk losing thousands of dollars per family and just try to ride it out. But we wanted to give each family a choice. There was a moment where they could withdraw their funds and withdraw their child from the trip so that they had a choice about that. So before that really came to fruition, and we used Google Form for that, and we asked that any questions or comments be put into the Google Form so that we had one Google spreadsheet from which to draw upon all of that information. So that was just a really good practical suggestion, to have all the communications about it in one place rather than having to gather lots of emails. We get buried in email. So that's one suggestion I would make if you're making decisions about tour. But before we could let people have the option to withdraw, we had to pull the plug and postpone. So people are understanding of that we have a CDC doctor in our congregation who was in Seattle for a long time, and he was with experts, and those experts said traveling in June is really going to be out of the question. So we had a CDC expert who consulted other CDC experts who said this is going to go through May, and if you get quarantined or have health issues with a large group of teenagers, just trying to keep a teenager in your house for 2 or 3 weeks is a big challenge. So imagine doing that with a bunch of youth, and we all know that proximity is part of choir tour. So they're in close proximity with one another. It would not be a healthy situation. So just helping people come to grief with that. We also ask the parents to talk with their kids about it and go gently to parent through the situation and to be thoughtful as to how they have family interactions. We've also approached our leaders and our officers to minister to their choir members about that grief. And some of the things that are normal end of the year stuff for us that are rites of passage for seniors and certain celebrations, and frankly important to our congregation. We have standing room only at our homecoming concert. That's going to be a loss. But is there a way that we can go through some of those rites of passage just in an altered way? I think it's too soon to say what that will be because we don't know if we can be around each other at that time. One more consideration is if it's unsafe to travel, people will be in town. So maybe we could consider extending our season to end at a different time. Those are our thoughts.
So I went to college at SMU when the great Lloyd Fouch was still the choir conductor there. And one of our rites of passage on choir tour was throughout the tour, he would write a poem about every person on that bus, from the great second year grads to the lowly bratty freshmen. His wife would go on the trip, the bus driver. And then the last night of tour, we'd all gather around as he would read each poem, and it would have to do something with something funny that had happened on tour or something in the music. And it was his way of saying, I see you as an individual, as a person. You're not simply base number 12 or tenor number 5. And I think one of the things that we can continue to do through all this for rites of passage, and even in terms of our connectionality, is sometimes we focus on the Zoom things or the virtual choir, these big broadcasty things, but there's really nothing that can replace that person-to-person connection. The individual calls, calling individual choir members, sending individual emails. And if you're a little nervous about sending a handwritten note because we don't all completely know how long the virus lives on a piece of paper, the scientists say, what, a day maybe? Do a handwritten note and take a picture of it and then send that. So it still has that handwritten feel. You can write and just all those ways that we can still connect with individuals. That part we haven't lost yet. This is an opportunity to do that. It's time consuming, but it's a lot less overwhelming to me than trying to figure out Zoom.
Yes. We really have to, for these rites of passage and for our seniors or even our sixth graders who are graduating out of our children's choir program and moving up to something different. And even for our adults, there's some sort of grief associated with letting go of these expectations. Like, this will not look like it normally does. Any advice as we recognize this grief? How do we is there a good way to say it's okay to be sad? Maybe that's just what we need to say. It is okay to be sad. I am sad too.
Mark, I like your comment about I see you, what you said, Lloyd Fouch said. And it's made me think my seniors, I have a big senior class this year for me, and all but one of them has been with me since they were 4. And I'm going to start crying. At the end of the year choir party, I always give them Bibles, and I've made a bookmark that has titles of anthems that we've done, and if they have a Bible verse, I put that on there. I make it very tailored to their time in choir. And on the back, I put the prayer of St. Patrick, Celtic blessing, and a note from me. And I'm going to do all that. But at our end of the year choir party, which is all the choir families, then we perform for each other and they get applause. And it, like you said, Emily, not having that big event for your program can really hurt. But I'm just thinking about those seniors, and I usually have a slideshow going from the year up on the wall, and I include photos of the year, but I include photos from when they were little and all through the years. But I think what I'm going to do is make like a page that has different photos of the group, but also them through the years to include when I give them, because I want them to know I see them, and I've been seeing them all these years. That's a good thing to think about, because I don't want to just say, okay, well, here's that Bible I was going to give you in front of everybody. I need to find a way to make it more personal for them.
It would probably be ministering to the parents of seniors as well to go ahead and start saying, something you can do with your extra time is gathering some photos for that senior slideshow, because that is something you can do virtually. Again, a nod toward the future, even though you don't know how it's going to go or the timing of it, but just a sense that we can sidestep this and find another way to get about the same things that we've been trying to accomplish. But I do think if I were a parent of a senior this year, I would want to hear something like that from my leader to say, go ahead and get those senior pictures ready. We're going to have that slideshow.
Mm-hmm. As we gathered as panelists this morning, oh gosh, and I can't remember which one of you asked this question, but it was, what has been an unexpected blessing of this time, of this reality? And it would be really interesting to ask our choirs that. I know as a parent, you feel overwhelmed, like, okay, we have school, we have all of these, I have to cook every meal. No. But for our children, they may look back at this time and say, that was the funnest time of my whole entire life. My parents were home. I could stay at home in my pajamas all day. Like, what is the unexpected blessing of this time? Which one of you asked that question? It was really good.
I think it was Emily.
I want to share that an unexpected blessing for me has been calling older members of the congregation who I don't normally have individual conversations with often. And the older people are so glad and grateful to be contacted. And they're, saying, I have everything I need, I'm hunkered in, but boy, what a difference music makes, or I so appreciate somebody thinking of me. And so if you can find an unexpected blessing to do your job in a different way and be pastoral to people that you don't normally encounter as regularly, that's been my unexpected blessing.
You could even, just an idea based on what Emily was just saying with older members, if you run the gamut of ages, you could connect pen pals some way for your adult choir members to be a pen pal with one of your children's choir members during this time, and find ways that feel comfortable and safe for everybody. But what unexpected things could come of those connections, connecting your musicians that normally might not talk to each other.
Mark, Mark Miller, what you said about folks are finding out things about each other through their emails, I'll have to think about that a little more. But one of the things I noticed is when I watched the live stream, which we're not going to live stream anymore, we're on Sunday mornings, we're doing recordings. They've already recorded up through a big part of May. But when I've watched the live stream, and it'll still be people tuning in, I love hearing who's there, seeing who's there. And Episcopalians aren't big, loud prayers. So I'm thrilled to see who everybody wants to pray for. They're adding it onto the Facebook line, the chat. And it's just helping me. I'm so short. I'm not always in church. I can't see everybody. I love being able to see the names. So it's been a silver lining to worshiping online that I did not expect.
Mm-hmm. Well, was somebody going to talk? Mark, were you?
I was just going to say that I've never been on so many walks in my life. I mean, I love walking. I love being outdoors and a nice neighborhood. But I was like, wow, I'm really getting to know every blade of grass on these blocks. But it's been wonderful. And also walking the other Sunday, I had my phone in my hand listening to someone's live broadcast. And I thought, wow, this feels like people must have felt like 80 years ago before TV, and you had a radio program that would come on at a certain time, and you'd listen to it, and you'd interact. And I thought, okay, this is okay. And to have dinner, as I mentioned to you earlier, Katie, every night with the kids, and to be home, it's a very special time. And I realize that. The best of times and the worst of times.
Indeed. Well, before we wrap up, I just want to share just a little bit of technical information from Coursers Guild. I know a lot of you are wondering copyright things. You want to do the right and legal thing, and we thank you for that. if you're a member of Choristers Guild, we're making our everything available to you from Choristers Guild, our anthems, our resources. You can, if you're a member, you can make a recording of that if you want to send that out to your choir as a devotional or a way of connecting with them. Make sure that you do fill out the appropriate license. If you're going to record something like yourself singing a song, you'll need a mechanical license, and we'll email that all out to you so that you know exactly what you need when you need it. But we're going to waive the fee for mechanical synchronization licenses through the end of April. We will continue to pay our composers for their work, so that's why it's really important that you fill out that license so that we can continue to support the composers and the work that they do. But just know that you can use our material because that's our mission, really. That is our mission. We want to equip you to be present with your choirs, even in this very, very odd time that we're in right now. And we are a nonprofit, so if you are in a position where you can support us even more during this time as we make those offers, we just encourage you to do that, and we're so grateful for you. Before we go, Mark Miller, would you like to lead us in a song or just sing something for us as we close our time?
Absolutely. It'd be my honor being in this webinar with so many musicians. Wow. It is an honor. Can you hear that electric keyboard? No matter what people say or think about me, I am a child of God. No matter what people say, no matter what people say or think about you, you are a child of God. No matter what the world says, no matter what the world says or thinks about me, I am a child of God. No matter what the church says, no matter what the church says, decisions, pronouncements on you, you are a child of God. And there is no thing and no one who can separate. They can't separate you from the truth that you're someone, you are family, you are meant to be a child of God. You are a child of God.
Blessings, everybody, as you pastor your choirs, your groups. We'll probably be back next week with a little technical webinar, giving some tips for connecting in these various places. So keep sharing your ideas online. Uh, keep loving one another, listening, and blessings to you. Bye-bye, everybody. Panelists, thank you so much. Emily, Karol, Mark, and Mark, you're the best.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Katie.
everybody.
Great job.
Yep. Thanks.
See you later.
Thanks, Kate.